2 Kings chapter 10. Since Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria, Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the rulers of Jezreel, to the elders, and to the guardians of Ahab's sons, saying, Your master's sons are with you, and you have chariots, horses, a fortified city, and weaponry. So when this letter arrives, select the most qualified of your master's sons, set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. However, they were terrified and reasoned, Look, 2 kings couldn't stand against him. How can we? So the overseer of the palace, the overseer of the city, the elders, and the guardians sent a message to Jehu. We are your servants, and we will do whatever you tell us. We will not make anyone king. Do whatever you think is right. Then Jehu wrote them a second letter, saying, If you are on my side, and if you will obey me, bring me the head of your master's sons, at this time tomorrow at Jezreel. All 70 of the king's sons were being cared for by the city's prominent men. When the letter came to them, they took the king's sons and slaughtered all 70, put their heads in baskets and sent them to Jehu at Jezreel. When the messenger came and told him, They have brought the heads of the king's sons, the king said, Pile them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the city gate until the morning. The next morning, when he went out and stood at the gate, he said to all the people, You are innocent. It was I who conspired against my master and killed him. But who struck down all these? Know then that not a word the Lord spoke against the house of Ahab will fail, for the Lord has done what he promised through his servant Elijah. So Jehu killed all who remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, all his great men, close friends, and priests, leaving him no survivors. Then he set out and went to Samaria. On the way, while he was at Beth-Eked of the shepherds, Jehu met the relatives of King Ahaziah of Judah and asked, Who are you? They answered, We're Ahaziah's relatives. We've come down to greet the king's sons and the queen's mother's sons. Then Jehu ordered, Take them alive. So they took them alive and then slaughtered them at the pit of Beth-Eked. 42 men, he didn't spare any of them. While he left there, he found Jehonadab, son of Reshab, coming to meet them. He greeted him and then asked, Is your heart one with mine? It is, Jehonadab replied. Jehu said, If it is, give me your hand. So he gave him his hand, and Jehu pulled him up to the chariot with him. Then he said, Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So he let him ride with him in his chariot. When Jehu came to Samaria, he struck down all who remained from the house of Ahab in Samaria until he had annihilated his house, according to the word of the Lord spoken to Elijah. Then Jehu brought all the people together and said to them, Ahab served Baal a little, but Jehu will serve him a lot. Now therefore summon to me all the prophets of Baal, and all his servants, and all his priests. None must be missing, for I have a great sacrifice for Baal. Whoever is missing will not live. However, Jehu was acting deceptively in order to destroy the servants of Baal. Jehu commanded, Consecrate a solemn assembly for Baal, so they called one. Then Jehu sent messengers throughout all Israel, and all the servants of Baal came. No one failed to come. They entered the temple of Baal, and it was filled from one end to the other. Then he said to the custodian of the wardrobe, Bring out the garments for all the servants of Baal. So he brought out their garments. Then Jehu and Jehonadab's son of Reshab entered the temple of Baal, and Jehu said to the servants of Baal, Look carefully to see that there are no servants of the Lord here among you, only servants of Baal. Then they went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had stationed 80 men outside, and he warned them, Whoever allows any of the men I am placing in your hand to escape will forfeit his life for theirs. And he finished offering the burnt offerings. Jehu said to the guards and officers, "Go in and kill them. Don't let anyone out." So they struck them down with the sword. Then the guards and officers threw the bodies out and went into the inner room of the temple of Baal. They brought out the pillar of the temple of Baal and burnt it. And they tore down the pillars of Baal. Then they tore down the temples of Baal and made it a latrine, which it still is today. Jehu eliminated Baal worship from Israel, but he did not turn away from the sins that Jeroboam son of Nebat had caused Israel to commit, worshipping the gold calves that were in Bethel and Dan. Nevertheless, the Lord said to Jehu, "Because you have done well in carrying out what is right in my sight, and have done to the house of Ahab all that was in my heart, 4 generations of your sons will sit on the throne of Israel." Yet Jehu was not careful to follow the instructions of the Lord, God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not turn from the sins that Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit. In those days the Lord began to reduce the size of Israel. Hazael defeated the Israelites throughout their territory, from the Jordan eastward, the whole land of Gilead and the Gadites, and Reubenites and the Manassites, from Aroer, which is by the Arnon Valley, through Gilead to Bashan. The rest of the events of Jehu's reign, along with all his accomplishments and all his might, are written in the historical records of Israel's kings. Jehu rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria. His son Jehoahaz became king in his place. The length of the Jehu's reign over Israel in Samaria was 28 years.
2 Kings 11. When Athaliah, Ahizah's mother, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to inherit all the royal heirs. Jehozabad, who was King Jehoram's daughter, and Ahaziah's sister, secretly rescued Joash, son of Ahaziah, from among the king's sons who were being killed, and put him and the one who nursed him in a bedroom. So he was hidden from Athaliah and was not killed. Joash was in hiding with her in the Lord's temple 6 years, while Athaliah regained over the land. In the 7th year, Joiada sent for the commanders of hundreds, the certain Karnite, and the guards. He had come to him in the Lord's temple, where he made a covenant with them and put them under oath. He showed them the king's son and commanded them, "This is what you two are to do. A third of you who come on duty on the Sabbath are to provide protection for the king's palace. A third are to be at the foundation gate, and the third at the gate behind the guard. You are to take turns providing protection for the palace. Your two division that go off duty on the Sabbath are to provide the king's protection, at the Lord's temple, completely surrounded, and the king with weapons in hand. Anyone who approached the ranks is to be put to death, but be with the king and all his daily tasks. So the commander of hundreds did everything the priest Jehibodah commanded. They each brought their men, those coming on duty on the Sabbath and those going off duty, and came to the priest Jehoiada. The priest gave the commander 100 commander of hundreds, King David's spear and shield that were in the Lord's temple. When the guards stood there with their weapons in hand, surrounding the king from the right side of the temple to the left side by the altar and by the temple, Jehoiada brought out the king's son, put a crown on him, gave him a testimony, and made him king. They anointed him and clapped their hands and cried, "Long live the king!" When Athaliah heard the noise from the guard and the crowd, she went out and to the people at the Lord's temple. She looked, and there was the king standing by the pillar according to the custom. The commander and the trumpeters were by the king, and all the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. Athaliah tore her clothes and screamed, "Treason, treason!" Then the priest Jehoiada ordered the commander of hundreds in charge of the army, "Take her out between the ranks and put to death by the sword anyone who follows her. For the priest has said, she is not to be put to death in the Lord's temple." So they arrested her, and she went through the horse entrance to the king's palace, where she was put to death. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord, the king, and the people that they would be the Lord's people, and another covenant between the king and the people. So all the people of the land went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They smashed its altar and images to pieces, and they killed Madden, the priest of Baal, at the altar. Then Jehoiada, the priest, appointed guards for the Lord's temple. He took the commanders of 100, the surdays, the guards, and all the people of the land, and they brought the king from the Lord's temple. They entered the king's palace by way of guards gate. Then Joash sat on the throne of the kings. All the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, for they had put Athaliah to death by the sword in the king's palace.
2 Kings 12. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. In the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became king, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Ziba. She was from Beersheba. Throughout the time the priest Joiada instructed him, Joash did what was right in the Lord's sight. Yet the high places were not taken away. The people continued sacrificing and burning incense in the high places. Then Joash said to the priests, all the dedicated silver brought to the Lord's temple, censers, silver from vows, and all silver voluntarily given to the Lord's temple, each priest is to take it from his assessor and repair whatever damage is found in the temple. But the 23rd year of the reign of King Joash, the priests had not repaired the damage to the temple. So King Joash called the priest Joiada and the other priests and asked, why haven't you repaired the temple's damage? Since you haven't, don't take away the silver from your ancestors. Instead, hand it over to the repair of the temple. So the priests agreed that they would receive no silver from the people and would not be the ones to repair the temple's damage. Then the priest Joiada took a chest, borrowed a hole in its lid, and set it beside the altar on the right side. As one entered the Lord's temple, the priest who guarded the threshold put into a chest all the silver that has brought to the Lord's temple. Whenever they saw there was a large amount of silver in the chest, the king's secretary and the high priest would go bag up and tally the silver found in the Lord's temple. Then they would give the weighted silver to those doing the work, those who oversaw the Lord's temple. They in turn would pay it out to those working in the Lord's temple, the carpenters, the builders, the masons, and the stone cutters, and would use it to buy timber and carry stone to repair the damage to the Lord's temple, and for all expenses for the temple repairs. However, no silver bowls, wick, timbers, springing, basin, trumpets, or any article of gold or silver were made for the Lord's temple from the contributions brought to the Lord's temple. Instead, it was given to those doing the work, and they repaired the Lord's temple with it. No accounting was required from the men who received the silver to pay those doing the work, since they worked with integrity. The silver from the guilt offering and the sin offering was not brought to the Lord's temple, since it belonged to the priests. At that time, King Hazael of Aram marched up and fought against Gath and captured it. Then he planned to attack Jerusalem. So King Joash of Judah took all the items consecrated by himself and by his ancestors, Judah's king Jehoshaphat, Joram, and Ahaziah, as well as all the gold found in the treasuries of the Lord's temple and in King's palace. And he sent them to King Hazael of Aram. Then Hazael withdrew from Jerusalem. The rest of the events of Joash's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written in the historical record of Judah's king. Joash's servants conspired against him and attacked him at Beth Millo on the road that goes down to Silla. It was his servant Jozabad, son of Simeath, and Jehozabad, son of Somer, who attacked him. He died, and they buried him with his ancestors in the city of David, and his son Amaziah became king in his place.